This week in Beyond the Headlines, a look at youths and negative behavior.
In 2010, we had 522 reported incidents of theft as compared to 760 in 2011. And the sad news is over 70% of the perpetrators of those incidents we found to be young people between the ages of 14 to 29.
The New Life Baptist Church in Duff's Bottom recently hosted a panel discussion that focused on some of the social ills facing today's society. Entitled Nature's Dirty Little Secrets, the panelists spoke on a variety of issues dealing with negative behavioral choices of young people, such as crime, gang violence, and unhealthy adult-child relationships. Addressing the issue of crime was Inspector Patrick Harewood of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force. The inspector said that despite the concerning crime situation, the BVI is not facing challenges involving kidnapping, random violence, and crimes against witnesses and attempts to prevent them from testifying. However, he said that crime is still prevalent in other areas.
The truth of the matter is, when we do a crime pattern analysis of crime throughout the British Virgin Islands, the situation with crime is concerning. But it's not the worst since we do not have incidents of random violence, kidnappings for ransom, incidents of stalking and rape at random, or routine attacks on witnesses with the view of taking their lives so that they don't give testimony in court. That is not the typical experience we have in the BVI. And I think that that is encouraging. Our aim is to ensure that doesn't happen in the territory. It is obvious, however, that crime in other areas is increasing and alarming as it relates to burglaries, thefts, as Mr. Bob said, domestic violence, violence in general, sexual molestation, youth violence and crime, and the list goes on and on.
Inspector Harewood said the big question is how did the territory get to where it is now? Giving some statistics of crime between 2010 and 2011, the inspector showed how various crimes such as theft and burglary increased steadily over that period, but even more alarmingly was the revelation of who was in fact committing such crimes.
So how did we get to this point? In 2010, we had 37 incidents of robbery as compared to 41 in 2011. As it relates to burglary, we had 405 in 2010 as compared to 465 in 2011. In 2010, we had 522 reported incidents of theft as compared to 760 in 2011. And the sad news is over 70% of the perpetrators of those incidents we found to be young people between the ages of 14 to 29.
In an attempt to identify the reason behind the criminal activities, Inspector Harewood said that while many place the blame on the territory's development, the bigger contributor has been parents' failure to instill in their children the values that they themselves grew up with.
When we look at the history of crime in the BVI with a view to understanding where did we go wrong as a society, it is easy to put the blame on the tourist dollar. People say that all the time. You know, this is a country is developing, so wherever there's development, you will have crime. Did you ever hear that before? That's usually the thing. So we are quick to say that. But realistically speaking, many parents who came up through the 60s and 70s and 80s became very complacent and less concerned about the crime that they were experiencing in the territory. Those parents basically had the experience of what it was like to work hard, and some of them said, well, I am not going to allow my child to go through what I went through. So what happened as a result, they started to bend the rules, to ignore certain things, put emphasis on education, and not look at some of the same upbringing and teaching that they receive. It could be a simple chore to make sure that the children learn what it means to work at home first, by washing the dishes, you know, cleaning up their room, do some work around the home and that type of thing and so on. And when they do that, then they can get things that they need. But what is happening now, children today are getting whatever they ask for. You know, they grow up in an affluent society. And unfortunately for some of them, not necessarily all of them, these kids grow up having a big capacity for all sort of things that they see on the internet, you just name it. And not to mention that we are in the information technology age. Young people are driven with the desire to have everything that they see. Particularly on BET, even though BET has a lot of wonderful things going, it also have some things not necessarily good for our children.
Speaking on the concept of the broken window, Inspector Harewood said that if a broken window isn't fixed, then it leaves room for a variety of things to come in. This, he said, was the case with the territory's youth, who were allowed to continue practicing bad habits instead of those in responsible positions closing the window on those habits when they had the opportunity to.
The concept of the broken window is, if something is broken and is not fixed, then we create an opening for all sorts of things to happen. And unfortunately, as a society, we have created all sorts of things to happen in this era as we talk about development, information age, technology age, all sorts of things are coming into the territory. I was at the bank one time, and there was a young man behind me with a radio loud. But it wasn't the fact that the music was loud, it was the type of music he was playing. And you can hear the violence and the curse words, you just name it. And he was feeding his mind with that information. But it's in the territory. And we allow it. And we put up with it. We don't say anything wrong with it. Sometimes we might have a problem with it, but unfortunately people have a tendency not to say anything about it. And this is often the case because even people in responsible positions will talk to the persons that they are annoyed with, but don't say anything. We'll call the police and say, there's a problem, I want you to address it. And who are the persons they're reporting? And times they're persons that they talk to on a regular basis. And they're their relatives, they're their friends. But yet, they won't say anything about it. I don't understand that. I really don't. Because I train myself, and as a matter of fact, I feel that if you're associated with someone, especially if they're a friend, you should be able to speak to your friend about anything that you believe they need to be spoken to. If you can't do that, that person is not your friend.
According to the inspector, the shooting deaths of Jason Barley and Ian Watkins in 1999 were the catalyst for a series of murders in the BVI, with 32 murders having been recorded to date. He said that regarding other crimes in the territory, many of the perpetrators belong to either one or more of the 7 known gangs to the police.
Our major problems with incidents of murder started after the shooting deaths of Ian Watkins and Jason Barley in 1999. Ladies and gentlemen, that's when all hell broke loose. Those incidents followed with a string of firearm-related incidents, leaving over 32 persons murdered until this time. After the highest murder rate in 2008, with 8 reported incidents, we have begun to see a decrease down to 2, but even 2 are too many. The problems we are experiencing now with steady increases in burglaries, occasional robberies, and thefts are usually committed by young people between the ages of 14 to 25, where a concerning percentage of those young people have been found to be involved in either one of 7 new gangs on the block: the Crips, the Bloods, the Braveheart Soldiers, Squad Up, Low Estate, Personal Estate, or the Black Shirt Gang out of Bargains Bay. And of course, there's a gang that we had problems with in the Long Low East End area. Over a period of time, we have discovered that some of those gang members were operating in twos, sometimes in groups, depending on the type of violence, particularly gang fights with rivals. And usually these rivals, if you look at the history, started out when they were basically rivals over the basketball games. That's where it all started. And then they move into actually trying to defend their turf and that type of thing and so on. And they will have occasional fights. And the thing with these gangs is that if you fight or you interfere with one, you have to actually interfere with all. All right?
But crime isn't the only social ill plaguing communities today. Henderson Tittle, a minister at the New Life Baptist Church and an active mentor of many of today's youths, spoke about another problem that involves not only young males but young females as well. Minister Tittle addressed the issue of unhealthy adult-child relationships, where older men prey on much younger women, and likewise older women seek younger men, most of whom may still be in school. Minister Tittle spoke about the terms commonly used to identify both the adult men and women in such relationships, and he went on to identify some of the reasons why older men and women get involved in such unhealthy relationships.
There is a term that is used today to describe the older women who are having a relationship with the younger boys. And there is also a term that is also being used to describe the men who are having, the older men who are having relationship with the younger girls. And this term for the older women, cougars. Everybody say cougars? Cougars. And older men, the term is sugar daddy. Everybody say sugar daddy. Everybody say sugar daddy. Sugar daddy. Now, I don't want us to be judgmental. And I don't want us to begin to point our fingers, because that's not why we are here. Because you don't know why they became a sugar daddy or a cougar. And I want to look at some of the reason why. For the woman, maybe she have just been escaped from an abusive relationship and need to be in control. So she find a younger boy. She find a younger man who she can control, and she know that that young boy won't beat her. Also, dissatisfaction. She's in a relationship, but she's not being satisfied like she used to. So now she's finding a younger man, a younger boy, who is full of energy and can satisfy her. Also, greed. There's no reason, but she just have a big appetite. And she just like to eat a lot when it comes to relationship. So she find a younger boy who can now run a marathon instead of the man who is home who do what they call a sprint, a dash. A sugar daddy, it can be an abusive cycle. Maybe he was abused when he was a child, and the cycle just continue. And once you've been abused, it says it's easy for you to become an abuser. So he's now abusing, so the cycle continue. Then we have also the dissatisfaction or greed. Maybe wifey or your significant no longer reach up to the shelf to take the bottle down because she's not capable anymore. Maybe she have put on a few pounds, and she is not as flexible as she used to be. She can't bend and touch her toe like she used to. But the younger girl, she's more flexible, and she can do all that and a bag of chip and a little bit more. Right? So you find that he will go for a younger girl, sugar daddy, not because he wants to. Then he is looking for insecurity. He's insecure about how he feels about himself. We know that what it is. 12 inches make a foot, and 3 feet make a yard. And he's insecure because he's only 6 inches, but you need 3 feet to make a yard. And I know exactly what I'm saying, but I'm saying it like this so that you can understand what I'm saying. So he feels a little insecure, and also he wants to be in control because the ladies that are his pair, he can't talk to them like how he will talk to the younger girl. So he looked for the younger girl.
Minister Tittle also pointed out some of the things that should raise a red flag in the minds of parents and guardians that may signal their child is in an unhealthy relationship with an older person.
What if your 16-year-old son, who is still in school, come home with new shoes, brand new clothes, jewelry, spending money? Would you know? Would you know who is giving him the money or the clothes? Will this raise a red flag? Will you pay attention? Will you notice it? Will you ask questions? Vice versa. If your daughter starting to dress differently and buying new clothes, you didn't give her any money to buy any clothes, have more money than you give her for her allowance, uncle didn't give her any money, has a change of attitude because now she's running with the big boys, so she feel fresh. Like my grandma will say, she started to smell herself, so she feel like she have arrived. Would you notice or would you recognize this?
One thing that became clear during the panel discussion was that these social ills of crime and unhealthy relationships which involve the young people have their roots in similar soil. Each of these young people, according to the presenters, are in fact looking for identity and a feeling of belonging. Inspector Harewood said that one of the main reasons why young people join gangs is because they don't know who they are, and he explained that persons come into the territory to train such young people how to commit crimes.
Over a period of time, we have discovered that some gang members were being influenced by foreign gang members coming into the territory from some places in the Caribbean to commit serious crimes. We had one young man who actually came in here, and we were fortunate to catch him, and he had cuts from the crown of his head down to his very toes. And I'm not lying to you, I'm in the church. I was so shocked to see that he had stab wounds, gunshot wounds, you just name it, beating. He had wounds all over his body. And he said, as that experience that he'd had from the time he was a young man made him become a heartless person. He became a killer, he said. And he talked about his killing experience where he would join with gangs and go all over the Caribbean. And I'll be honest with you, I actually listened to this man spoke, and I became so concerned. Not afraid, but I couldn't believe the things that he was saying. And he talked about when he performed an act. They like him because when he performed an act, he leaves no trace. He usually travels with acid, and when he commits the murder, he will actually throw the acid to when there's nothing left. Dangerous person. And he went on to talk about their vicious plans and how they would go about to kill someone, befriend them, and they wouldn't even know that they would kill them. And this is some person who was actually here in the BVI, and according to him, he came here to recruit young men, all right, to be involved in murders and show them how they ought to do it. And they actually look for young men who are basically searching for identity. God bless someone who said, I won't call that person's name, who said he was going to make sure that they start to teach history, local history in the schools. Because if you don't know your history, you don't have an identity.
Meanwhile, Minister Tittle said that the young people who gravitate toward older men or women are also in search of identity. And he said that it is important to instill core values in the youths so that they have a sense of pride and worth as they grow older.
What is the root of all this negative, unhealthy behavior that would show up through the negative symptom? One of the factors we must consider is our core value, the value system. And I would like to touch two of the core value tonight in closing. Why core? Core are at the center of who we are. Value are at the core of who we are. Value. Why core value? Value creates or chart our course and determine our destination. Value define our character and guide how we behave. Value are driven by force and influence our action and our reaction. Value lasts a lifetime. Value helps to define our culture. Value teach respect and dignity for everyone. Learning to love value promote well-being for individuals and the larger society. Every child cares about value and has the capacity to create, explore, and build a value-based life. Young people thrive in a value-based atmosphere where they are regarded as capable, worthy, and respectfully care and attend to. Value are caught more easily than they are taught. And we as adults must become that example for our young people.
According to the panelists, the social ills facing the territory at this time are serious ones. But if the community can invest more time and effort into the youths, then many of the problems and challenges that exist now can be erased. This is Walter Barrett, Beyond the Headlines.